Friends, Father Frank Pavone here, National Director of Priests for Life. Time to bring you my daily diary update again. Now I'm going to cover 5 days in this particular report, October 1st through the 5th. We finished our last update with the night of September 30th. I was up in Buffalo and gave a talk at a banquet there for a pregnancy center, the Summit Outreach, Niagara Falls. Actually. And the next morning, Friday, October 1st, I started out the day with a breakfast meeting with one of the local priests who's very active in pro-life work, after which he took me to a beautiful pro-life center that he is starting and gave me a tour of it, and I greeted the volunteers there. Then I went over to the Summit Outreach Pregnancy Center there in Niagara Falls for a session with not only the volunteers and staff of the center, but with some of the pro-life people who had been at the banquet the night before. They showed me their new ultrasound machine and medical unit, and we sat around and talked about the current progress of the pro-life movement. That was a great visit. I blessed the facility once again, especially the new medical equipment, and then had to head to the airport. Did work at the airport in my usual way once I checked in on my laptop and on the phone with my office, and then flew from the Buffalo airport to Washington, D.C. Again, doing some reading on the plane, and then arriving in Washington and going to the hotel where I was staying, settled into the hotel, did a little bit of work in communication with my office as the day concluded for the staff, and then went connected with two of my staff people who were also coming to DC, and then had an evening event in front of the Supreme Court starting at 6:30 with my friend Teresa Bukovac and a bunch of people, pro-life people from around the country, who were there for the launch of a new group, the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising, or POW as an acronym. And these are people who identify with the left in many, many issues, except for abortion. They are strongly pro-life. And so they had this gathering at the court to announce their new initiative, and we were there to participate and support them. After that, a bunch of us pro-lifers went over to a local restaurant to get some dessert. And then the next morning began a series of events the whole weekend, praying in various locations, mostly in front of the Supreme Court. But we started off Saturday morning after I got the day underway with a breakfast with my team and some email work. We went to Planned Parenthood there in Washington, D.C., and I led a time of prayer there together with a couple of other leaders. Went back to the hotel, got some things together, then went over to the Supreme Court to take part in an afternoon prayer rally. I led off the time of prayer from 2 to 4 p.m., and various other leaders prayed, and there was a big pro-abortion march that day, so-called Women's March, as took place in other cities as well. So they were coming right by where we were, but everything remained orderly. The police were there and provided a lot of help. And we witnessed to the Kingdom of Life. After that, did some more work back at the hotel, and then went out to dinner with my two associates who were there with me in Washington, and we had some planning meetings actually over dinner that night. Next morning, Sunday, the 3rd of October, I led a national rosary in front of the Supreme Court after attending Mass over at St. Joseph's Church on Capitol Hill. Went right over to the Supreme Court and led that rosary, which we broadcasted as well. Then I had stayed at the court and had participation in the interdenominational prayer service, at which I also offered an opening prayer and was with pro-life people from around the country. We broadcasted all of these events, and then had some good hours of work midday into the afternoon in my hotel room. I was updating our online question and answer section of our website. Had a lot of new material to put up there, and was also working on updating the SupremeCourtVictory.com webpage, and much other work that was waiting for me in my emails, including preparing for a pro-life leaders meeting later this week. So I did some hours of work in my room, and then in the evening we had a candlelight vigil in front of the Supreme Court. So we were back there praying with Pat Mahoney, longtime associate there in Washington, and the Stanton Healthcare and the Purple Sash Revolution that they are leading were the main sponsors of these events, and the candlelight vigil was beautiful. Then on Monday, it was back to the court again on Monday morning, October 4th, because that was the first day of this year's term for the Supreme Court. It always begins first Monday of October. We were right there with a big rally and prayer vigil that morning, in which, together this time with Alan Parker of the Justice Foundation, we unrolled 2 gigantic scrolls bearing the names of 500,000 of our fellow citizens who are calling for an end to abortion and a reversal of Roe v. Wade. So I prayed and preached there. Following that, I went over to our D.C. office, which is right behind the Supreme Court, worked for a little bit, and then went to a special luncheon with the Attorney General of Mississippi, Lynn Fitch. And she, of course, is the primary person now responsible for defending the law in Mississippi called the Gestational Age Act, the pro-life law that protects babies in the womb from 15 weeks forward. This is the very law that the Supreme Court is reviewing in this Dobbs case, which motivated all our prayer sessions in front of the court at this time as it begins its new term. It was a great luncheon. There were a couple of dozen pro-life leaders there that I saw and interacted with, along with the Attorney General. After that, it was time to go back to my Washington office. I did a couple of hours of work there with our Washington, D.C. Staff person, and then I headed to the airport, worked in the car on my way out there, worked at the terminal waiting for my plane, worked on the plane on my way back, actually reading a new book by Diehl Hudson and Matt Schlapp, which is going to be coming out soon. And they wanted me to write an endorsement for the book. I really enjoyed reading it on the plane. Got back about 9 o'clock into Orlando, was picked up, and had some phone calls to make while I was in the car going back to my office, and arrived there about 10, and that was the conclusion of the day. Then Tuesday, finally, October the 5th, I was back at my office with my staff, and here are some of the things that happened on that day. After some morning administrative calls, I had our morning staff briefing. Then I went into the TV studio, taped a program, and then did the live broadcast of the Mass. After that, did some desk work, and then at 11:30, I was privileged to be on the podcast hosted by Dinesh D'Souza. So he interviewed me for his podcast. That was wonderful, a wonderful conversation. And then I got back to my desk after a quick lunch, did some more large pile of work, and then I interviewed Tim Gagline of Focus on the Family in our studio for one of our programs. Did some more work at my desk the rest of the afternoon and interaction with staff. Then at 5:30, I decided to go to a nearby restaurant for dinner, and on the way there and during the dinner, I spoke with our Chief Technology Officer to go over some progress, and then right after that, called our Executive Manager to go over some more updates. And then by that time, I was finished with dinner, came back to my office, did some work at my desk, and at 8:30 p.m., I was on a half-hour national Zoom call with our regional coordinators for our Silent No More awareness campaign, and Janet Moran, a co-founder of that, with Georgette Fournier. We were on the call, and we updated the regional coordinators, encouraged them, listened to their updates, and that was the conclusion of my day on Tuesday, the 5th of October. And those were the first 5 days of this new month. Thanks for listening to these updates. I hope you're encouraged by the work that we are doing for the unborn and for you, to equip you to be more effective in the pro-life movement. Father Frank Pavone here of Priests for Life. Talk to you soon.